From Iran point of view, just compare Indian-Iran relationship with China-Iran relationship. Chinese have been very keen to fund. I found both parties are very keen to make Chabahar project as a success story. The challenging part of that goes to both parts. Iranian incompetency and bureaucratic incompetency, and also Indian lack of, we call it, political will. America, US has been always in supporting Israel. So it doesn't matter, to be honest, whether Trump or Biden. What is important is whether Trump is going to fuel the war or is going to look for a ceasefire.
This is an India Today Global exclusive. I'm being joined by Seyed Emamian, who is an assistant professor at the Tehran Polytechnic, is also co-founder and founding partner of the Governance and Policy think tank. It's an independent think tank in Tehran. We will be discussing a few things today: the war, escalating conflict in West Asia, what many call Middle East, and also the India-Iran ties. How have the two countries fared in the recent past? Are we looking at newer developments in relationship between the two countries, so on and so forth? Emamian Saab, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Let's begin with the conflict itself. Now, we are looking at a conflict at a time when there is going to be new presidency in the US. With Trump winning elections, how is Tehran placed? How is Tehran looking at Trump presidency vis-a-vis Israel?
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. Actually, with regards to the conflict, the conflict has moved to a new stage since early October because the level of aggression that Netanyahu and his administration showed something different that never expected before. I would say since the October 7th, with regards to different views towards the October 7th, whether or not it was a legitimate, understandable reaction to 70 years of genocide, or it was one of unprecedented terrorist attack. But since October 7th, everyone was agreed, even was approved by international courts like ICC and IJC, that Israel is continuing committing genocide and ethnic cleansing in the region. But some very important figures in the region and in the conflict zone, they were still being very much committed to, we called it calibrated war, a rational, non-escalatory modes of engagement. The last one was late Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. He was the one that was very much committed to a very rational way of fighting. He was the one that was very much keen to keep war calibrated, rule-based, and regulated in very specific region, not being escalatory, and he was very much keen not to push for escalation. But since,
really?
Yeah.
I think Israel would disagree, saying that, Hezbollah's chief did cause a lot of damage to Israel.
Of course, Hezbollah was very clear, as far as I was informed by the news and by the statements, that Hezbollah was very clear since the beginning that we are fighting in very specific scale and very specific size of the borders, just as a sign of supporting Palestinian peoples. As long as in the minute or the second that Israel is going to stop genocide in Gaza, we are going to stop fighting. So now everyone is criticizing late Nasrallah because he was committed to calibrated war strategy. But what happened since his assassination, it was clear for everyone that Nasrallah was miscalculating, because there is no limit for the aggression of Israelis administration led by Netanyahu. So with new stage of the war, that there is no one to contain the escalation. I think Israel is going to have a non-limited war, and everyone is going to adapt with new situation.
Right.
With regards to the Trump's re-election, of course, the main characteristics of the President Trump has been unpredictability. So no one could predict what would be his reaction. But we know that his electoral campaign, is very much polarized now between the very voter base, they call themselves America First one, and there's some part of the campaign that has been very much funded by the donors, and it's very important with the donors that we call them Israel First part of the campaign. That is a polarization within the Trump's camp between America First and Israel First one.
Is there anywhere in that America First and Israel First where you're seeing a camp that will actually advocate for Iran? Because Trump himself has been anti-Iran in all his policies. Of course, he pulled out of the JCPOA.
Yeah, of course, it's not about the Iran. It's about the Trump's strategy, whether or not Trump is going to be a peace president or a warmonger. So from the America First one, they prefer Trump to be much more committed to its mandate with regards to the national border security and national American prioritized issues, very internal issues, rather than Trump to be very warmonger, aggressive, fighting everywhere in the world. The Israel First one, that now unfortunately has been much more represented by the first part of the cabinet that has been nominated. We call them Adelson's cabinet. Is mainly influenced by Miriam Adelson's campaign rather than the America First one. They are very Israel First one. It's very challenging and very concerning. But we don't know about the Trump himself, because you know that Trump is very unpredictable. And at the same time, I think Trump...
But you make a very important point. His appointments themselves show where his leanings are, what his leanings are, and where he's headed. Whether it is the envoy to Israel, Israel's ambassador to the United States of America, special envoy to West Asia, or for that matter, right now, the Senate clearing weapons for Israel. It does seem like they know exactly where they're headed, and that is that they're going to support Israel. Whether that means loss for Iran, for Palestine, for Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, is a different matter altogether.
Yeah. America, US has been always in supporting Israel. So it doesn't matter, to be honest, whether Trump or Biden.
Really?
Even Biden was very much in support of Israel. Without Biden, Israel won't live even a few weeks after the October 7th. Everyone knows that Biden served Israel very well, historically. But with regards to the Trumps, what is important is whether Trump is going to fuel the war or is going to look for a ceasefire. So it's the most important one. Yeah. But even though you know that there are a huge political friction within the Israelis, that themselves, they think that the ceasefire is now better for Israel than the war. So it's not the matter of the Israelis' interest. It's the matter of the whether war is important or we are looking for a Trump presidency as a period for America not be aggressive, not be in any new war. So I think it's the most important one. And still, as far as we have heard from inner circle, Trump's inner circle, there is a very huge polarization and discussion going on inside that. So if Trump is going to fuel the war and is going to support Netanyahu's strategy for escalation, now is something that everyone in the region is going to be well prepared for. Iran has, in my view, has decided to categorically to change his security policy and deterrence strategy.
Oh, really?
It's something that Iran is going to be well prepared for because of the, as I said, the failed experience of the late Nasrallah being committed to calibrated war. It seems that now the time is over. Of course, everyone is waiting for the Trump's strategy and how he's going to deal with the region. But at the same
But
time,
how is Iran changing policy? What is Iran doing over here to change policy and strategy?
yeah, Iran now thinks that if a war happens, war would be a whole truly regional war. No one would be safe from that war. Even some countries that they have been trying to be impartial or neutral, or some of them that they have already normalized, we call them normalized by Israel. And at the same time, I think the whole region would be in fire. That means that even some countries that they are not based of that region, the West Asia, but they are very much dependent on some supplies or the market of the region. Emerging economies like China and India, all of them would be heavily affected by the likely war that will happen. So if a war happens, no one would be safe, and we could expect a kind of the supply chain and energy crisis far greater than what we experienced during the COVID-19. So it would affect everyone.
So you're basically saying that Trump might be pro-Israel, but he's certainly not pro-war. So with Trump coming, you might see him push Israel and the other players to negotiations and peace rather than war.
That's a possibility. We don't know exactly, but that's a possibility that Trump is going to start his presidency with having a very quick settlement in Ukraine and Russia's conflict, and also Israel's escalation, to contain Israel's escalation. That's a possibility, but as I said, still unpredictability is the main characteristics. Anyone who wants to characterize the new president of the US. Yeah.
In terms of hostage crisis and the negotiations, that has not moved anywhere. There were ceasefire offers that was rejected by Netanyahu, and now fresh offers by Netanyahu on Gaza. In terms of what you're looking at, what's your reading on what Netanyahu is thinking for Gaza right now?
Yeah, actually, as an independent analyst, I don't know about anything official and some secret news that maybe some Iranian policymakers have. But as far as we know about, is that Netanyahu's aggression, as I said, has no limits. He has dreamed for years, or say for decades, to bring US directly into the war. That's his dream. That's the main idea and main strategy for Netanyahu, to expand the war in the way that the US inevitably will be involved in the war. That's something, as I said, he had dreamed for several years. So that's Netanyahu's main strategy. And let me to go back to the Thomas Friedman's article a few months ago, that he was predicting that Netanyahu's strategy, how it's going to play the game in support of Trump's, and how he's thinking about keeping himself alive in the politics by extending the war, by still being in the war situation is the only way for Netanyahu to keep himself alive
politically,
in politics.
To survive in politics.
And also there would be a likelihood, as Friedman has predicted, for the next re-election of the Netanyahu, if he was successful enough to keep war continuing and to bring other players into the war.
Interesting.
So the war political strategy is something that Netanyahu is chasing very intelligently.
Emamian Saab, one thing is very, very interesting, when we look at West Asia and the entire geopolitics and how it is played out with the war. And we see that Iran, a Shia nation, has come out in support of Palestine more than the Arab world. Why so? Where's the reluctance over here of the Arab world coming into the main fray? We do know that there are strategic partners of the United States of America, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. But isn't Palestine cause big enough to unite the Muslim world?
To be honest, first of all, Iran-Arab relation has improved very well since last year, by the very important mediation of the China Iran-Saudi deal has gone very well with regards to the security and political relationship. Of course, there are some still we are lagging behind for economic relationship. And I'm sure that you have heard about clear statements from Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries. Once Israeli IDF, they attacked very selectively in specific parts of the Iranian territory. All of them, they clearly stated and condemned Israel's aggression.
That's true.
So now we are in the very specific political context that Iran-Arab relationship is in a very good situation. But at the same time, just we need to differentiate between what Arab governments, that most of them are non-democratic one, are thinking and are their policy, and what the nations and the people are thinking. So based on the polls that have been published by some Arab institute and international institution, even 96% of the Saudi Arabian people, they are clearly against any likely normalization. That is
of
getting
ties
much
with Israel.
more unlikely. Yes. So the Arab and the whole Muslim countries are very much against Israel. But the Israelis' aggression and genocide is not only Shia or Muslim or Arab issue. It's the nationwide, global issue. So you have seen huge demonstration across the world, and it's the matter of the humanity, and something that it happens unprecedentedly in front of the digital media and social networks. The genocide and ethnic cleansing happening every day. And it's something never been precedented in the history of the human being. So it's the more global human being issue rather than the specific Palestinian or Arab or Muslim issue. So that's the situation. But with regards to the policies, countries have played different roles in that conflict. But everyone should know that what is happening now in the region is a very historical period of time. It's a very turning point, not only for the peace and prosperity and connectivity and the economic growth of the region, also for the political situation in the region, because the people are very much now outraged by the level of genocidal operation that is happening in front of the cameras and the mobile phones.
That's true.
Everything has been online broadcasted. So it has clear. It's very much clear now. It's a very turning point for the region, for the Arab world, and I would say for the humanity in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in Delhi. So you've had your own set of meetings and engagements in Delhi. Tell us about where does Iran, India, where do the ties stand? Where do relations between the two countries really stand at this point in time, when we are seeing a lot of pressure on India from the West when it comes to Iran? And in such a scenario, are we moving ahead? Where is New Delhi when it comes to Tehran and the position on the Israel-Hamas war?
Yeah. With regards to the Iran-India relationship, it's not something new. We have civilizational interaction to each other. Both countries has a lot of things in common. History, culturally rich societies, very polarized, tolerable societies. And also we have been in touch for a long period of time in a very good political situation. So Iran-India relationship has been strategic since the independence of the India and since the convention that was signed in 1950s. Now still we are moving ahead. The only problem has happened was the US unilateral coercive measures. We don't call them legitimate sanctions. UCL that US has imposed on Iran-India relationship has affected Iran-India economic trades and particularly oil and energy trade. It has affected that a lot. We have been discussing with our Indian friends in think tanks and in policy-making venues that we think that Iran has lived with the sanctions for decades and years. as an independent analyst, always I think that a part of the problem lies to the Iranian incompetency. Sometimes Iranian authorities are not competent enough to provide such a platform for enhancing economic and trade relationship. But some part of the problem goes to the Indian over-compliance with the U.S. sanctions, U.S. Unilateral sanctions. What does that mean? The Indian colleagues always asking me whether there is any exception. I said yes. From Iran point of view, just compare Indian-Iran relationship with China-Iran relationship. Chinese have been very keen to fund. From Indian point of view, we have seen India has continued trading and economic relationship with Russia since the most important sanctions that imposed on Russia from the both American and European counterparts that they are very close to the India. But India has been very clear since then that that's the independent Indian decision to continue working with Russia.
Okay, then where are the problem areas when it comes to Iran and India? We know that Chabahar Port is very important, but is Chabahar Port something that there are niggling issues? Is it a pact that we see continue? Is this a commitment that we will see continue between the two countries, or are there problems?
The good news is that, again, as someone that I'm not representing anyone, I have talked to both Iranian policymakers and decision makers and Indian policymakers and decision makers. I found both parties are very keen to continue working to each other, and particularly to make Chabahar project as a success story. They already have extended in last May, a few weeks before the Iranian late president crash happened. They signed a contract for next 10 years. That's a good news. But the challenging part of that goes to both parts. Iranian incompetency and bureaucratic incompetency, and also Indian lack of, we call it, political will. That means Indians need to be more ambitious, more to some extent competent to bring about the operational development in the scale and time frame that is needed and expected.
You're saying this slow? You're saying this slow? Is it because of sanctions or otherwise?
Yes, it's because of a few things. First of all, because of the sanctions. Again, and also Ukrainian-Russian conflict, because always India is thinking about the North Sea corridor as a corridor to reach to the Central Asia and Russia, and the rise of the Taliban in Afghanistan, because always India thinking about the Chabahar in the way towards Afghanistan, and also U.S. troops that they left Afghanistan a few years ago. It has affected the India's ambition, and also exemptions that the U.S. literally exemption provided for the Chabahar. And the more important thing is that for Iranians and some critical views inside Iran, because in Iran we have a very diversified views.
That's
with
true.
regards
Not
to
many
Chabahar.
people will believe that, but it's actually quite true.
Some of them are very much in support of the Indians' involvement in Chabahar, very much thinking about the Chabahar as a very important, strategic, iconic, symbolic project that we need to make it a success story. And also they think that the Chabahar is strategically important, the only unique way for India to get access to Central Asia, and there is no other corridor that provides such access for India. But someone are very critical, not only technical criticism about the slowness and the delay in the project, even though there are some more strategic criticism of whether or not India is thinking about IMEC as an alternative corridor to the North Sea, and whether or not India has politically prioritized IMEC based on the pressure from Israel and U.S. lobbies
over Chabahar and the North-South.
But it has been stated clearly by our Indian counterparts and Indian policymakers that there are two different projects with different philosophy and rationale and economic analysis behind them.
Even geopolitics. For India, Chabahar is important to counter Gwadar, and China is sitting in Gwadar.
Yeah, that was part of the some pessimistic analysis that is happening now and inside Iranian corridors and media, that sometimes they are thinking about India's involvement and being in Chabahar just to contain China's investment, and just to never to don't allow China to come and the likelihood of Chinese investment in Chabahar. But it's very pessimistic ideas, but it's important. I have always saying here, once I'm in India, in Delhi, being invited with different think tanks and research institutions and media channels like you, that it's very important for India and Iran to expand their relationship beyond the official, just diplomatic routes. Because two societies are too big, too diverse, and we need to have society in people-to-people interaction. And my role as an independent analyst and think tanker and academic professor is that once I'm here to provide a good analysis of what is happening inside the Iranian intellectual part of the society, who are the supporters of Iran-India, who are the critical. And I told to even Iranian ambassador here, that is part of the project, just to get in touch with the Iranian intellectual society and to convince them that the Iran-India and Chabahar project is in benefit of both societies.
But is China waiting in the wings? Is China waiting to get into the Chabahar project?
Again, I don't have any specific news, but to be honest, it's always the case also for Iran-China relationship. I have exemplified that, and I have said that in 2021, that the Iran-China 25 strategic agreement was signed, there was a huge media controversy around whether or not being strategically with China is in the benefit of Iran or not. Again, I said to all Chinese friends and counterparts, that's your responsibility also to come to talk to Iranian intellectual society, not just signing agreements behind the scenes with the diplomats or political positions. That's something that the main reason that we are Iranian think tanks, independent analysts and think tanks, and also Indian analysts and think tanks, we are always trying to keep in touch with each other, not representing any political party or any department, just talking frankly and transparently to each other is part of, we call it intellectual diplomacy, that is very much needed. Otherwise, even very important strategic projects that has been politically signed by both countries would be challenged by the societies. But
will it be challenged by the other country? Like if it's signed with India, will China challenge it if India does not move fast enough?
Of course, yes, of course. There are some economic competition and rivalry, it's clear. And also both countries and even other countries, they have some lobbies inside Iran. What happened in China-Iran agreement in 2021 or 2021, yes, it was very much fueled by, I think, Western-oriented lobbies and medias inside Iran, because there was very much challenged by the US. First of all, US was very much concerned about Iran-China agreement for 25 years strategic partnership. So a lot of media channels, they started to attacking the agreement just based on some kind of the international lobbies. It happens everywhere. And with diverse, to some extent, open societies in different meanings, we have these kind of things. And so I'm always saying to all colleagues in different countries, India, China, I know about the Chinese-Indian competition, but from Iranian point of view, we are very much keen to work with both. And that intellectual diplomacy is important. We need society-to-society interaction rather than just political interaction.
Right. Final question before I let you go. Apart from the fact that India and Iran have been very close, there has been certain criticism that has come India's way from Iran as well, especially to do with government and the minorities here. What do you make of that? Why were those statements made, especially by the Supreme Leader?
As I said, we are living in the very diverse and complex societies and a very important period of time. There are a lot of things that may both countries agree or disagree to each other. But we have seen how India has interacted with, has kept working with Israelis. It's always has been challenging for the Iranians. And the India's approach towards October 7th operation, whilst India has been very fairly committed to the two-state solution, but India's statement that he sees October 7th as a terrorist attack is something different from the Iranian point of view. But we need to tolerate differences and different point of views. Whilst we are thinking that Iran-India relationship is very strategic. So it's clear. Even yesterday I met Iranian ambassador here. It was the first time I'm thinking, because just I'm here as an independent analyst. But he was kind, and he told me a very specific story that he has a chance to meet Supreme Leader very shortly. And he has emphasized that it's your job to enhance Iran-India strategic relationship. And Mr. Ambassador told me that I asked him, I need your support. And he said that I'm in support of enhancing relationship with India. It's clear. That's the policy.
Okay, that's a very important piece of information.
Something may happen. Something happens, some disagreements, some concerns about as you mentioned, some internal issues. Some of them are important for India, some are important for Iran. It's natural. It's natural. But strategically, it's clear for both parts that Iran-India relationship is not only strategic, is civilizationally rooted. So no one could think about Iran-India to being disconnected from each other, or to be, to some extent, a kind of the we call it geopolitical enemy or rival. Right. But we are thinking about this political situation is improving, and both countries are very much keen, as far as I have heard from policymakers from Iran and India.
All right. Seyed Emamian, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Indeed a pleasure. We hope to see you more often to analyze the situation on the ground when it comes to the war, is also ties between the two countries. Thank you so much. Thank you.